Hi, I'm here with Colleen Hewes, who is a conscious dying educator and death doula. And we're here to talk about the services that you offer. Thanks for being here.
It's great, Kathleen. Thank you.
Yeah, Colleen and I are
I'm
both
excited.
we're both part of the Gentle Passage Doula Collective. And I'm really excited to introduce people to the best 3 months, which I was able to go through with you and also through my certification. And I'd love to hear you explain in a nutshell, what is the best 3 months?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. The best 3 months is a tool, and it's a tool for end of life fulfillment. So you can use it as an education model, and it's a conversation building tool. So it initiates the conversation around death. And what people sometimes make a mistake is, oh, it's like advanced directives, but it's way beyond advanced directives and do not resuscitate codes and living wills. And advanced directives are more crisis oriented. You know, what do you do when? And the best 3 months tool is more like a living laboratory. So it's where a person can explore, their fears, their dreams, their desires, and um, and ask themselves, what is the most important thing that I need and want at the end of my life? So it gets people thinking, and it allows a person to explore, if they had 3 months to live. I can ask you that question, your age right now, you're healthy, and you've gone through this, but if you had 3 months to live, what would matter most? And that's what it gets you, your priorities. You get to set your priorities and your dreams. um, so you do this with 5 domains, and uh, you explore them. And what I do as an educator or coach is give them reflective questions on each domain. So these reflection questions, they look at ahead of time and they start thinking about them. And so, like, the domains there are 5 of them, and it's physical, which is your comfort and comfort in your body and your environment. So what do you want? Do you want your favorite slippers by the bedside? Do you want your favorite quilt? Do you want infusers, plants? What is it that you want? And then the emotional is honoring your feelings and healing relationships. Are you complete with everyone in your life, or are you incomplete? Do you have disagreements? Is there friction anywhere? And those are kinds of things people they identify, and they go, oh yeah, I do. And the mental is legacy. I love this one because people initially think, well, I'm not famous, so I'm not leaving a legacy behind. And what people don't realize is, yes, they do. They may be a great parent, and look at the wonderful children they raised, and look what they're doing and contributing in the world. They could be a best big sister or brother, husband or wife. They can be an activist. They can be a great volunteer. I mean, there's so many things. I did this with a client, and she actually had hiked to the base camp of the Himalayas. She had been the first sound engineer in the United States, female sound engineer. She had been, what do I want to say? She'd been a cook. She'd done so many things. She's an artist. And for her kids, she packaged up mementos from each of those adventures in her life so that they would have it when she passes. And there's all kinds of things that people do. So the other one, the fourth one, is spiritual, and that's honoring your beliefs and practices. And the practical is after death care. How do you want your body cared for? What kinds of ceremonies do you want, or rituals? There are many things that people don't always think of, like anointing. They think of maybe at the church, only the church can do this, but it's not so. Many people can do it. Bathing the body, the family can do that. So these are just a few of the things that we look at. And we work through, how does the person want it, their vision, And then we look at their current reality. How are they living now? And then the most important part are the action steps in between. What steps do you have to take in order to get to your vision? And those are pretty specific. And people really can get into that. And then they realize, oh my gosh, I've made a commitment here.
Hmm.
So that's it, kind of, the idea. And
Beautiful.
then at the end, they have a vision map, they have a plan,
Mhm.
this, tangible.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that was beautifully described. And tell me what, for me, I remember going through it, and what was most important to me was some communication among family members and sharing my ideas and thoughts. What are some of the important takeaways from people that have gone through the class and for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kathleen. I know we reflected on that when we were going through our course together. Um, you always start, and you remember this, start with the end in mind. So when you start with the end in mind, and the best 3 months tool has you do this, actually, you're thinking about how do I want the end of my life? And once you do that, guess what? You can actually live your life.
Yeah.
You can live your best life if you know what you want to be best at the end of your life. And that's one takeaway I got. It builds meaning and connection. The tool does itself, and it leads toward understanding what comforting care you can receive. You can give yourself and you can have others give you, and you define that. And the other takeaway is it focuses on what you want and what you don't want. You may not want certain people at your
Yes.
deathbed. I think that's a painful topic for some people, but I've actually heard people say, no, I don't want so and so there. They just know right away.
Yeah.
And that's their right, you know. And another takeaway was family education, because you also educate the family, you hold space for them as well as the patient, and you use the tool, which I love the best, is deep listening,
Mhm.
just being there. And that's a way of holding space.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. I think, too, I definitely had that reality of who I want and who I don't want, and it took some reflection with the questions that you provided, and then also talking to other people and learning what other people said. It gave me more ideas, and then had more clarity for myself, thinking about things I had never thought of before.
And you learn so much from other people when this happens.
Absolutely.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, and a safe place to talk about death and dying, which I know is really where the heart of all of our work. So tell me, what any surprises or things about teaching it that you learned that you'd like people to know about beyond what you've talked about here? Anything surprising?
Um, there's always surprises, Kathleen. Every time I look at a student's paper, I say, oh my gosh, I never thought of this before.
Mm.
And look at this young person telling me what they want. And I'm saying, that's beautiful. But I always learn something new by people who are participating. Even in the courses I took, I learned a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and you also, people, when they get together, if you're doing a course or classes, a workshop, they share articles, they share books they've read, and you get this big library. But by the time you leave, I mean, you have an idea. It's what I say, collective humanity coming together. You
Yeah.
know, um, People don't like to discuss death in this culture. So what I noticed when I've given a best 3 months class is that they may they they may not want to talk about death in this culture, or they avoid it, but when you get them together, they all of a sudden have a chance to say something because they see other people are putting themselves out there, so they actually feel relieved.
Mhm.
And I think that and people actually want to talk about death, even though we think they don't, you
Right.
know. But if you can get them comfortable and safe, they do.
I agree. And also, I felt a sense of freedom to not be doing it with people who would be involved with my process of death and dying, but to have a freedom with a group that,
Mhm.
it's makes no difference to them. so so then and allow myself to get clarity about and having permission to make those decisions on my own rather than to have it being imposed by your family or how it
Right.
to someone
Yes,
else in the family, how your family
exactly.
does it or friends. Yeah. So who might benefit most from taking the best 3 months? How would somebody know if they should sign up?
When I first became acquainted with the tool and knew very little about it, I thought, oh, okay, this is a tool for people who are terminally ill.
Mm,
and and also could be used with their families and caregivers because caregivers are often overlooked a
yeah.
lot and they
Yes.
need that support as well. But what I finally, as I started to do it with some of my friends and some people, that uh, were in different groups that I had been part of, I noticed that it's not just a tool for older adults. It's also for people of all ages. And right now, it's also for the young. And young people today are, and they're forced almost into doing this because of COVID-19. It's right in their face constantly. And young people do have questions about death. And I think this is part of the goal as a conscious dying educator and end of life doula is to move toward a death positive culture. And the way to do that is with some of the tools and classes that we provide. So, so it's not just for the young. I mean, not just for the old, it's for the young as well. So,
I agree. I agree. I know that I often say by having this conversation, it helps gear us more towards how we want to live. Just like what you were saying, you feel more alive and can live more with
mhm,
purpose when you're looking at the end. Yeah, to begin with.
mhm.
So I'd love to hear just what is it that you think causes the problem of us not having these types of conversations around death and dying?
There's a lot of reasons, and I've actually experienced some of them personally myself. But one of them is, and it's also been expressed in several cartoons, but one of them is if I don't talk about it, then it's not going to happen.
Right.
So it's kind of like don't tempt fate. If you say it, it's going to happen. And then you get into somebody who's terminally ill who feels like, oh no, they feel like what did I do to have this happen to me? And there's all kinds of thoughts that just aren't true. But some people, and I've had this conversation with people, they just think it's too morbid. Like if somebody asks me what I'm doing, I meet them in the grocery store. This happened a year ago before COVID. And they said, oh, what are you doing, Colleen? I said, oh, I'm taking this course. I'm going to be an end of life care doula, death doula. The topic changes
Yes.
immediately. They
Yes.
don't want to do it. Then they say, well, it's almost like saying, how about those Yankees?
Right.
It's kind of like, it's a shift. And so, it's that. But the big thing is we have a fear of what we don't know or understand. And our culture tends to push death and hide it. And they also hide sickness. So where do we put people? Nursing homes, hospitals, we kind of tuck them away out of the view of society. It's not like it used to be when people were in their homes and, you had all that central family support. So, death is part of the natural life cycle, and that's part of our fear. What do you mean it's part of the natural? That I actually have to do this? And as Woody Allen quipped once, it was, "I'm not afraid of death. I just don't want to be there when it happens."
Yeah.
And that's how people think. Or the other thing today in today's culture is they're too busy. They have financial stress, they have job stress, family stress, they've got all kinds of stressors. And if you bring this up, they'll say, oh, I don't have time for that now. And that's even in trying to do an advanced directive. They'll say, well, oh, no, 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 not now. I'll do it tomorrow or whenever. That's kind of how I see what gets in the way, some of the things that get in the way of people not, discussing death.
Yeah, yeah. I think that this is a nice invitation to explore it in a way of opening up what's important about life. I think it's a good life class, not just a good class on
Yeah,
planning
absolutely.
death and dying. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
what do you most enjoy about it? And is there any other questions that I didn't ask or anything else you want to share about it?
Well, there's a lot, but to answer your question, I enjoy the discoveries people make
Mhm.
and about themselves, and that I make about myself, and the sharing that takes place, the authentic sharing,
Yeah.
you know. Um, I often say that to people when they're doing the reflection questions. Don't necessarily, and somebody said this to me, that's why I got it, is that don't necessarily answer from the top of your head the first thing that comes along,
Mhm.
because that is not necessarily the authentic answer until you look deeper. So a lot of times what I see in my students papers currently is that they'll put, well, I'm going to, for after body care, I'm going to be cremated. And then they'll say, I really don't know what else is available.
Yeah.
And so I go, okay, that's good. It's a starting point. I mean, it's sure cremation is fine, but if you want control, don't you want to know what your choices are,
Yeah.
you know? And so so I enjoy that, and just moving from deficit thinking to possibilities, and that's what the best 3 months tool is about,
Yep.
possibilities. What's possible? So if somebody says to me in their planning, um, well, they want to heal a relationship, it's emotional. It's usually some relationship where they haven't talked to some, not usually, but oftentimes it's somebody they haven't talked with in a long time through whatever reasons. And then you say, well, what do you need to do in order to get there and do that, to have that person in your life again? Oh, no, no, that can't be done. It can't be done. But you see, how do you know until you take some action steps to see what would happen? And believe it, in some people have shared it. It has worked.
Yeah.
It really has. And sometimes it doesn't. And so you just leave them. You leave it alone.
Yeah.
So I can't, I mean, there's so many other things I've so enjoyed talking about this with you. And I think if people are really interested in more, they can contact our Gentle Passage Doula Collective. And um, my information will be coming out in 2021. I'm building my website now, and I will be offering classes and one-to-one consultations and doing all kinds of things, and hopefully a workshop with Kathleen and all kinds of good stuff. So,
If I have anything to say about it, absolutely.
yeah.
So, what is your website going to be called?
Oh, my website is pretty straightforward. I see myself as an educator, so it's deafdoulaeduc.com. That's that's the one I'm building right now. So it will once I get that all established with an email, professional email, then it'll be on our Gentle Passage Doula Collective website.
Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you, Kathleen.
Yeah, I highly recommend this class.
Thank you.
Yes.